So this weekend, the new Pixar movie Turning Red came out on Disney Plus, and I watched it because it has a cute red panda, and that was apparently enough to sell me on the movie. So good job, Pixar. You obviously know what people like. Overall, I liked the movie, and I think it did exactly what it needed to do as far as being cute and fluffy and upbeat and relatable. I did have a few thoughts of things that I didn't think worked quite so well, or that I wish had been done a little bit differently. Mainly, there's two parts where May says things that don't really seem supported by the scenes that came before. This might be a little bit spoilery, but it's honestly not a movie that really depends on plot twists to maintain tension. It's more of a movie where there's a setup and payoff, where every time you think something's going to be important later, it usually is. And I was kind of annoying my boyfriend by being like, ooh, this person hid something in a hiding spot that's kind of obvious. I'll bet someone else is going to find this stuff later. And then sure enough, later at the critical moment, the stuff was found, and I was like, yes! So anyway, I will be talking a little bit about the end of the movie, but I don't think it really is anything you couldn't guess by watching the film anyways. So there's a point where instead of binding the panda spirit, May decides to go to a concert with her friends and keep the panda. And when she gets there, she says that her motivation was kind of that she was sad being apart from her friends and she missed them and wanted to reconcile with them. But based on the scenes that came before that, I really saw her motivation as being more that she wants to keep the freedom that comes with having the panda spirit, and she didn't want to give that up. And going to the concert was an act of rebelliousness and affirming that side of herself. There weren't a lot of scenes of her thinking about her friends and missing them, so I kind of felt like that wasn't earned. And there's another scene where May is talking with her dad about what she wants to do as far as managing the red panda spirit, and she mentions that her mom never talked about her own struggles with the panda spirit and what happened when her mom was going through the same thing, but also May never really showed curiosity in what happened with her mom or asked her a lot of questions about that. And I actually, as soon as I heard that, I felt like, yeah, why wasn't that in the movie? I want to see that scene now, because I feel like it actually would have made the rest of the story stronger if we had a scene where May is like, oh, so you became a panda too. What was that like? What did you do? Did you bounce around on the rooftops and have a lot of fun like I did? You should understand what I'm going through, and have the mom character, whose name is Ming, just completely shut that down and not want to talk about that. I think there is the implication in the movie that both May and Ming are afraid of showing the more rebellious, uncontrolled, messy sides of themselves to each other, and that to reconcile at the end, they need to accept that side of themselves and stop hiding it, whether they decide to keep the panda spirit or bind it. And I think having a scene where Ming is keeping secrets from May and have that drive May away from her would actually make the reconciliation at the end stronger. So I'm like, why didn't they have that? That would have been great. And it also would have made the scene with the dad feel more earned, where he actually tells May what was going on, and that Ming is not as different from her daughter as would first appear. Another thing I think could have been handled a little bit better is that the conflict is that May starts turning into a red panda when she hits puberty, and apparently this is a thing that all the women in her family go through. It's a blessing from one of their ancestors, but in the modern world it's more of an inconvenience because no one wants to turn into this giant car-sized or even larger animal at the drop of a hat. And Ming warns her daughter that the more she turns into the panda, like the stronger the panda side of herself is going to become, and eventually it'll just get out of control. And I thought originally this was going to be like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation where the alter ego eventually takes over. Like at some point she's going to turn into the panda and not be able to get back to her human self even when she calms down, and that would be really frightening and distressing for her, but that never really happens. Instead, Mei actually gets more and more control over the panda the more she uses it and gets accustomed to what triggers it and how she needs to calm herself down. In just a few weeks that take place in the movie, she becomes really proficient at changing back and forth from her human self into the panda. So that does make it seem like less of a threat. Also, when a few of the kids at school, in fact, it seems like most of the kids at school find out about the panda, they all love it and they think it's adorable and fun, and the panda takes photos with them and dances with them and hangs out with them. And the response in general is really, really positive. And the government never finds out or wants to take away the panda, the magic panda, because magic exists. Like, that's a huge thing. But luckily, government people never show up and try to take Mei away in an unmarked van or anything creepy like that. So it was a little bit hard to get invested in the stakes of should she keep the panda or should she not keep the panda, because the downsides of keeping the panda seemed kind of small. And that's another thing where maybe having a little bit more of Ming's backstory, at least hinted to, would have been better, because Ming did hurt someone as the panda, and even though that is still pretty minor, it would have been the most compelling reason we have for not keeping a like wild beast werewolf transformation around, because you could actually accidentally hurt someone that you care about. We do actually see Mei attack another kid while she is in her panda form, but luckily that didn't turn out to be that dangerous or hurt anyone. It actually doesn't play out that much different than if she had been in her like human girl form and just pushed him to the ground and yelled at him. So again, there isn't a whole lot of reason for Mei to feel bad about herself because of the panda specifically. It's more like, you know, don't immediately knock someone down and yell at them when you're angry. Like, you could have a more measured response, which is part of being an adult. But like, that wasn't really on the panda. I think that was all Mei. Some things I liked about the movie: I thought it was like very fun and had a good pacing to it. It had a lot of setup and payoff where things that were mentioned in the beginning come back later. I actually really liked that Ming was a very supportive parent. She really approves of her daughter, is really proud of Mei's accomplishments all through the beginning of the film. It's really only when Mei gets a little bit more rebellious as a 13-year-old that conflict begins to start between them. And, you know, I kind of like seeing a parent who looks at her kid's good grades and instead of saying like, why can't you do even better? She's like, yay, good job, as always. You're so smart. You're gonna be so accomplished when you get older. And so I like seeing that side of the overprotective mom, that she really does like think her daughter is awesome and want to support her however she can. She just goes overboard sometimes. And yes, it's not a huge part of the movie, but there is a lot of period stuff. But it's not really gross out humor. It's more like situational humor of like how moms can be overly supportive of their daughter who just wants some privacy and like doesn't want her mom giving her all the pads and all the advice and everything all at once. Ming thinks that Mei has gotten her first period. It's actually not the case. Mei has turned into a panda, but I did find the over-enthusiastic support pretty relatable. Like, I remember being a teenager and just finding like, Mom, no, like, don't talk about this in front of everyone. When I saw the movie, I did remember a lot of things that I felt when I was a girl, like 12, 13, 14 years old, trying to figure out, like, why do I have these new feelings, this new attraction to boys? How do I manage this period stuff? Mom, don't talk about it. And wanting to be with friends instead of being with family all the time, and needing to negotiate that space while also maintaining a good relationship with parents. Actually, the day I watched the movie with my boyfriend, we were having lunch on an outdoor walkway, and we saw this group of 4 girls walk by, and they seemed to be about the age of the 4 friends in the movie. And I said, oh, like, look at them laughing and having fun and talking with each other. That looks just like the trailers for Red. And when I said Turning Red, not Red, I don't know why I called it that. That looks like just like the trailers for the movie. And then when I saw the movie, the characters did act just like those kids I saw. So I think they hit on something pretty true about the growing up experience and the friendship experience. Like, spot on. So anyway, those are some of the thoughts I had about Turning Red. I think if you were interested in the movie from the trailers, you should go ahead and see it, because the trailers are pretty accurate. And if you think it was silly and fluffy, and you don't want to see it for that reason, it is pretty silly and fluffy, so it might not be your thing if you're looking for something a little bit more geared towards older teens and adults. But anyway, thank you for watching my video. The only problem is the budgies are chirping, but I cannot stop that because budgies be chirping.